I was thinking today as I looked at the things I put in, which are mostly trouble and funny. Hi, Martha. Hi, Carol. I thought I should establish a plant of the week for this so that there's always something pretty there. I would nominate right now sunflowers for plant of the week because they are truly opened up. There's one space where I took down the lilacs. I think I showed you earlier taking down lilacs that had mite problems. Um, it opened up a big area to the sun. And of course, the lilacs were where a lot of birds sat and ate. So there's a lot of seed on the ground. And lots of sunflowers came up there. And as it turned out, they're all really large sunflowers. So there's a big area of about 12 big sunflowers staring out at me from behind the garden. Um, and I know that that won't last very long. Birds will start eating them, or squirrels will eat them. One time I looked out in the yard and there was a sunflower head. Still see the petals around the outside edge. It was jumping through the yard. I could just see the sunflower, and then I could see the sunflower again, and then I could see the sun. A squirrel had taken and chewed the whole head off and was holding the head, and it was so big that he couldn't get onto all fours. All he could do was hop with it. Probably thought he hit the jackpot. Oh, Stephen, you are here. Dun, dun. So,
Yes, but I'm doing some things, so I'm turning off my microphone and video for a couple minutes.
okay. Steve just got in from fishing. I told him stay out if you want to stay out. It's not all that hard to look once in a while and see if there's anything there. Do you have
Were
liatris
you
bloom?
serious?
I told you to stay out. Go ahead, go out.
Ta-ta, see you all later. Have a good night.
Did I have to twist his arm hard or not? He was out fishing with my brother-in-law. Well, when somebody passes away, everything changes. He's still my brother-in-law, I
He'll
think.
always be our brother-in-law.
Right, right. But I mean, legally, he was ever your sister-in-law's husband.
Yep.
He was my brother-in-law. Now you're not the sister-in-law. The connection is
I'll be in touch and I'll see you later. Have fun, everybody. Thank you for understanding too.
there are just so many days to fish in a lifetime, and Steve is determined to take advantage of everyone if he possibly can. We do have liatris blooming. It started blooming, in different places. At the Waterford Library, it was blooming 3 weeks ago, starting. It wasn't, it was still at the top of the flower. It started for us a week after that. And that's the Liatris spicata. We don't have any of the Liatris pycnostachia, the much taller one with more widely spread flowers. That one's not blooming yet. Hey, Jocelyn, hey, Priscilla. Steve always has fun fishing, and he tells me that it's not catching. It's not called catching. It's called fishing. So even if he doesn't catch anything, he's happy as a clam. Gretchen, when she come, well, I've already sent her an email back. Gretchen said, I don't know what this is, but if it's something good, I'll move it to give it a place so that it's not going to crowd the viburnum that's supposed to be there. And this, I think some of you would recognize this. Do you want to type in what you think it is? She also wants to know what this one is, suspecting it's an oak. But you want to guess what this one is? Yeah, buckthorn. It's glossy buckthorn. It's the one that's not quite as common as the common buckthorn with the pointier leaf and teeth. This one has a smooth edge on it. And it's not as invasive, but it's invasive. Birds have carried it here into Gretchen's garden. And it had its name changed recently. It used to be Rhamnus, which were all of the buckthorns, Rhamnus frangula. And now it is Frangula, no, yeah, now it is Frangula alnus, an alderleaf buckthorn. It's another one of those things that now they're changing the weeds names too. I'm very glad that for the convention from the International Botanical Congress is that once they accept a change in a plant name, they will require publishers and require authors to post both names in publications for 20 years from that point on. And if you think about it, in 20 years, when I'm 90 and Steve's 94, it's not going to matter if we don't know the name of a plant. We can do what our friend Marge Alpern did at 94, which she said, it doesn't matter anymore what the names of the plants are. I've grown them, and that's all that really matters. Hey, Barb. Hi, Carol. Yep. common buckthorn. And this is an oak. Yeah, definitely an oak. And it's an oak in the red oak group. The points on the leaves tell me it's a red oak, or a black oak, or a pin oak, or a, let's see what else is in the red oak group. Well, there are other yeah, black oak, red oak, pin oak. There are some others that are in the red oak group. If the edges of if the lobes on the leaves were rounded, it'd be in the white oak group. It'd be a white oak, a bur oak, swamp white oak, a overcup oak, and I think the turkey oak. Anyway, there's lots of different oaks. Gretchen said, well, I don't think I have room for an oak tree there, but maybe I'll move it to someplace where there is room. I wouldn't keep a red oak. If I had a choice between a red oak and a white oak right now, I'd keep the white oak. All those oaks in the white oak group are somewhat resistant to the oak wilt disease that is just wiping through the forest right now. I don't think either one of them has shown much resistance. Either group has shown much resistance to the sudden oak death, but oak wilt, which passes from tree to tree, it's a fungus and it travels through grafted roots and by insects carrying it to cuts. Okay, what else did somebody send in? Elizabeth sent in this picture of a nine bark, which happens because in the garden along the river in Alpena, the volunteers who take care of the garden have planted all natives, and this nine bark is bigger than the bed. So they pruned it in April, which is when you would want to prune if you're going to prune something hard, um, last year. And everything that grew out since last spring is blooming. But the maintenance people, the city maintenance people who mow the lawn came through and not being able to mow well, weed whacked it back in August or September last year. And so everything that had been setting itself up to bloom is gone. And the parts that were left and the growth that happened after they weed whacked it didn't have time to develop flower buds. So you're looking at the difference between what if I prune a spring bloomer late or early, and also looking at the different appearance that you're going to get if you decide that you're just going to keep something that wants to get big, small. I think it's also a good example of if you've got a plant that wants to be 10 feet across and 10 feet tall, and give it 10 feet to grow. It's a lot easier than anything else that you could do with it. We need some new volunteers, Elizabeth tells me, at the garden in Alpena, if anybody is up that way. They could use a few people who are on the younger side, maybe just retired rather than retired for a long time. Anybody got any questions? You're here early. We might as well talk. It's just Janet, literally just Janet. Steve was here for a minute, and he was here mostly because he felt guilty. He was fishing. He came back in. I said, get out of here. Go back and go fishing. So you're going to have to help me watch the chat.
Hi, Janet. It's Carol.
Hey, Carol.
Have a question for you. I didn't get to taking the dead blossoms off the peonies and the iris and the stuff this spring. So right now I've got some really big seed pods on both of them. Would it be, or has anybody tried to start at either of those through
Sure.
seed?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can grow peonies and iris from seed. They take some time to germinate. You're going to want to plant the seed as soon as it's ripe, and make sure that it gets a winter for cold treatment. And it might not germinate the first year, but once it germinates, it'll take a couple 3 years before you see what you've got. But there's no reason that you can't grow them from seed, and it's kind of fun to do. Um, there are people who cross irises specifically to try to get a one that's orange with yellow falls, or to get white with purple falls, or they or shorter or taller, more fragrant, less fragrant. Peonies, most of the peonies are that are being hybridized right now, being grown from seed, are hybrids of the herbaceous peony and the tree peony, where they're still working on getting some cool colors that weren't available otherwise, and some stronger stems. So go for it, but you have to wait until they get brown.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Karen. Yeah, Terminex door-to-door salesman was in the neighborhood selling a full house flush with a yard and garden treatment to get rid of all the insects inside and outside the house. he confirmed all outside insects. So I asked how he thought that could potentially affect our agri-food supply. And he got a blank stare. Heard of Terminix's war on all insects? About 3 times a year, someone will come up the driveway, and if I'm wearing an insect shirt, maybe they don't even talk to me, but they come up the driveway and say, I'm so and so, and I'm working with your neighbors to get rid of the spiders, and we can take care of that for you, or the mosquitoes, or the whatever. And we chase them off and tell them to take our name off the list. If they're a young person, most of them are younger people, I tell them to please get another job, that they need to work in a safer industry and one that makes more sense. But they obviously aren't really well informed on that. The Smithsonian magazine this issue, July-August issue, had an article on the insect decline around the world and the impact on the bird population and the people who are measuring it and what they're finding out. So more and more places are picking it up. I've seen it in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, in the New Yorker. It's people are going to be hearing more about it, but let's face it, there are people who've grown up with things the way they are right now, where you can open the door in the evening and hang out the door and not have someone in the house yell at you, close that door, the mosquitoes are coming in. Do you remember? I'm sure that you do. Some of you who are here remember those days when you would bang the screen first to get things to take off and get away before you open the door and scoot it out. But that's not the way that it is anymore. And just as with climate change, there's still a lot of discussion about whether or not it's actually happening. Other questions? Let's see. So since I chased Steve off, if you put something in chat and I don't notice it, then turn your microphone on and talk. Nobody's got any questions. Looks like there's nothing else in here too. This big pointer that I make so that I can point to things and be seen is a little awkward to move around. Okay, what time is it? Oh, I guess it's time to get started anyway. So I will tell anybody who's new. Oh, Michelle, go ahead and talk. We got a minute.
Yeah, I was just curious. Remember the mint that I gave you guys that I bought it from
Mountain Mint. Yeah, Mountain Mint.
Right.
Broadleaf Mountain Mint.
Are your flowers like about the size of a dime or smaller?
I
Or
have
is mine
not.
just a bad spot?
I have not, since it started to bloom, been over on that side of the house to look at it, but they're usually, yeah, about without the petals, not counting the petals, the flower cluster is
Yeah.
about the size of a dime. I'm used to that. It's not a huge flower. There probably are some varieties that somebody's picked out that have bigger flowers. And let's see, this one that you got from the
Well, it just doesn't remind me of the one at the
at the
zoo.
zoo. Yeah.
Not the zoo, the Belle Isle Rudolph
Oh,
Garden.
maybe
Big
we
and bushy.
maybe we have a seedling as opposed to a division, and maybe we have something a little bit different. And then too, you can have different size flowers because the growing conditions are different also. But I have not been. I will check and I'll send you a text and show you what I got going out there.
Yeah, well, I'll send you a picture and you can see
I'll
if this
compare.
looks like
Okay.
nothing more.
Put something in the picture that I can compare to. Hold out a dime or something.
Well,
Okay. All right. And we're talking about broadleaf mountain mint, Pycnanthemum muticum, I think is its second name. It's a native plant with a big bract that makes the flower much more colorful. And it's a native mint. That's a cool plant to have. So keep your microphone turned off unless you've chatted. And we get to a question page and nobody answers because I'm soloing today. Then you're going to raise your hand or turn your microphone on. Raise your hand control. Well, the chat to everyone. If you chat to just me, I'm going to make the mistake of if I can answer, I'll answer in chat. There we go. Hey, Gretchen.
Yeah, in that top oven.
Hey,
Excuse
Gretchen.
me.
That's okay. We were talking about your buckthorn a couple minutes ago. I'm not sure if you were here.
I want to say thank you so much for identifying that glossy buckthorn that's in
Yeah.
my garden, and also for giving me the information on the oak, because I was tempted to say, oh, I'll keep the oak and then I'll just start a new section with an oak. But you're saying that it might be the kind that's susceptible to oak wilt disease. And
Yeah, it's definitely in the red oak group, and it's more they're more susceptible to oak wilt. They're more likely to die outright, whereas white oak group, the trees in that group are more likely if they get infected with oak wilt to lose a branch, a limb here and there.
so I need to hope for a
A white
volun
oak,
a
a volun
volun a volunteer white oak to come
Yep,
up.
yep, with rounded lobe. No points. No
And
points.
and that now I'll go pull that buckthorn uh, immediately. I'm
Yeah, they are
wow.
nasty once they get going, and they're so fast to grow. So fast to grow.
Right. Thank you so much for that information. Boy,
You
that
are
helps.
you are welcome. It's fun talking with other gardeners because the littlest things that we each notice make a difference to other people. So chat to everybody if you put something in chat. And if you're looking to raise your hand so that you can just talk like Gretchen just did, go into reactions or into participants. There's a raise your hand control, and you'll jump up to the top of this list that I've got here. Right now, the list is in alphabetical order with Ann, then Barbara, then Carol, then C. Herman. But if you raise your hand, you'll be at the top of the list and I'll see you. I can't keep the list open to show all the people who are here. And this is our 47th time of doing Free-for-All Friday. And it's our first, I think this is our first time, no, I guess last year about Christmas time, a holiday overlapped with our webinar. And so we were gone for 3 weeks. So this has been just about 3 weeks since we last talked to you at the end of June. And I'm glad to be back. Lots happened. There's Steve. However, Steve is not here tonight. Those who just joined us didn't hear that he came in and was here for a minute. But he really wanted to be back out fishing. And I said, go out and fish. He's let me go out and garden my whole life. They would lean out the back door as it got dark, Steve or the kids, and they would say, Mom, are you out there? Because you know how it is, you just keep gardening until you can't see anymore. And some things you can do by feel even. So I would stay out there until the last minute. Tell people to take a look in Garden A to Z if they're looking for advice and for something that doesn't have ads and cookies and all the rest of those things. Boy, it bothers me to have ads go floating past me. It bothers me that we have to use YouTube to put things up because I know they put ads on, and I just have gotten to where I say, I'm just not going to look because we have no choice in what ads they decide to put in there. But we're going to keep on putting up what we talk about because what we hear from you is what makes all the difference in the gardening world. I mean, it really does. What people find out as they're actually doing things is what makes the biggest difference. For instance, Pierre Benerup he had just emailed me today about some of the things that he wants to talk about in the next webinar, which is August 2nd, about lawn alternatives. And he was saying that maybe we should put in more plants. I said, no. Put in what actually works. Don't put in things that sound like they're good. Put in what actually works, what we can actually show people has functioned as a lawn, but is not grass. Next week, when we do Free-for-All Friday, so what would that be? The 25th? On the 25th, we'll be coming to you from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which we call God's country, and we call up north. Some people call up north of Saginaw or Midland. We call it up north if you cross the bridge. And up north, Steve's relatives that are up north call people who live below the bridge fudgies or trolls. We live below the bridge. And everybody in the UP are angels. I promised last Saturday when we were doing our webinar with Barry Burton. It was a lot of fun about plants that really shine in that lag time, end of June, beginning of July. We were talking about galls, and people were asking questions about galls, so I thought I would show you some galls because I think they're pretty cool. Made mostly by mites and small insects, but also there are some bacteria and fungus that cause galls. What started the conversation was Greg Beal's picture of oak apple gall. Well, I'm not sure that it's oak apple gall. It's an oak gall, but there are a number of galls that can form on oak, and this one's formed by a wasp that lays its egg in the wood when it's young in the spring, and the mite irritates the bare stem so that it grows a little capsule around itself. It doesn't hurt the tree, not unless there's a huge number of them and it's a little tree, but it can look weird and people ask about it a lot. That's oak gall. I think it was Dave Tercel sent this in quite a while ago, wondering what this spongy looking thing was on the side of his maple tree. And I said, well, that's probably a gall formed by fungus, and they call them spongy galls, I'm pretty sure. Although, and it's probably a fungus. It's probably infected a wound in the tree. And the wound may have been years ago, and the gall has just forced its way out through a break in the bark. But galls like that, if they remain, can become woody and be pretty cool to look at later. They're the things that people cut out of a tree, even they cut them out of living trees, which is not good, and polish them up and make them into bowls and neat containers and stuff. Or in the case of Bob Poole, who I don't think is still doing this work, but he had property in the Upper Peninsula up between Marquette and Houghton. And he knew every tree personally on his acreage. And he would keep trees that were galled until they were tall enough and then cut them off at ground level, bring them home, treat them like lumber, dry them, stack them so that they didn't warp, and power wash the bark off of them to make these beautiful sculptures, which we would buy and use in gardens as art. Galls. This is a raspberry gall on a raspberry. Well, might have been a blackberry. But it's a gall that's formed by a mite, and the mite has irritated the meristem and caused that to happen. And it does occur on raspberries. You can see the prickles here. I'm not sure if it occurs on other things, but it looks kind of like a raspberry as it ages, doesn't it? Now, a gall like that, if you wanted to, it would take some energy from the rest of that branch, so it's unlikely that you get much in the way of fruit off of that branch, probably. And you could just cut the gall out and remove it, put it in the hot compost, or you could just let them go. This is a gall on the, let's see, is it called? I think it's called spur gall on a cockspur hawthorn. Look at the thorn on that cockspur hawthorn. Is there any wonder that they use these as hedges in order to keep people out of areas? But that gall has killed the twig that it's growing on, just the twig. This is spruce gall and think hard. Cooley spruce gall adelgid causes it. This is an aphid, a group in the an insect in the group of aphids and aphid-like insects, and it's got a cool life cycle. It lives for a whole year. It lives for a year on Douglas fir, and then when it emerges from the galls there, it lays its eggs in spruce, especially the blue spruces, and it kills the tip that it's growing in. Doesn't kill the tree. There's another gall, a twig gall that spruce can get that occurs further back and can kill all the tips beyond it. That's a more concerning gall. Most galls, though, as you see them form, and these before they turned brown were oddly shaped buds. You can clip off and destroy and control it that way. I had a neighbor who used to spray his trees for that, which is silly because you have to spray the whole tree repeatedly. There are a lot of galls that form on leaves. Maples, I know at least 5 kinds of galls on maple, which I think are kind of cool to look at. You're looking at the bottom side of that leaf here, where it's kind of deformed, but the leaf is still working for the tree. It's not damaging much more than what, 1% of that leaf, of one leaf. It's not causing a lot of trouble. It's another mite in this case. This is on an elm. I've forgotten what this one is called, but they're things that happen that account for all of these. So here's a white oak with one of the galls on a leaf, and when you read things like in Doug Tallamy's books about nature in the garden, that there are 500 some insects that live on oaks. There are a lot that form galls, a lot that form leaf galls, a lot that eat leaves. This is a oak cup gall, teacup gall. Does it look like that? Look, little cups on a leaf. They look like this first, and they'll fall off when they get bigger, and they fall off. People sometimes blame the tree for dropping a different kind of acorn, and they're not as hard as acorns, but they can accumulate in big numbers. This one is a spindle gall on cottonwood or aspen. And spindle gall, it makes a spindle. There's a spindle gall that occurs on maple that's red. It goes on the underside of the leaf. This is a gall on oak leaf hydrangea, and the gall is forming on the backside and puckering the front side of the leaf. If you flipped it over, you'd find a distorted vein back there. So there's lots of different galls. This is ash flower gall. Not that we see many ashes anymore, but it would make the flowers after the seeds, after the flowers bloomed, they would not produce seeds because the seeds were busy producing these galls that hang on and form that kind of dotty look all over the tree. Yeah. And then this gall is caused by a bacteria. This is Euonymus crown. Well, it's crown gall on Euonymus. We most often see it there, and you most often see it down at ground level. And it seriously depletes the energy of the plant, and it can spread to about 100 different kinds of plants. I've seen it on forsythia, on roses, on maples. I've seen it on viburnums. We've seen it on a lot of euonymus, and it can be spread by pruning when wet. So you want to prune these out, move below quite a ways and take them out. We've written about that. This is that same crown gall on forsythia. It's got a great name, Agrobacterium, omnivorum. Is that what it is? Agrobacterium omnivorum. In other words, bacteria of plants that eats everything. Okay, so what went by here in the chat? If you got a question, now's the time to pose it. Somebody is saying they see galls, witch's brooms on plants entirely differently now that we talked about witch's broom. Thanks a lot for Jean for sending in that great picture of witch's broom. Grass is green. There's a witch's broom on an Alberta spruce at the Organic Garden of Oakland University, and it's entirely different, loaded with cones. And that's the kind of thing that I've had great admiration for gardeners of all ages, including one guy who was in his late 70s, who was playing around with hickories and growing hickories from seed. Now, it's unlikely he would be seeing those hickories bearing fruit, since it's going to take him 20 years to bear fruit, but he was taking the most flavorful hickory nuts and taking nuts from those trees and starting them. So go ahead, take those cones from a witch's broom and see what comes of it. Maybe somebody will name a weird little dwarf Alberta spruce or a dwarf pine for you. Okay, this is I was not sure what plant this was that I saw in the Upper Peninsula last year, and this year our questions pictures are coming to you from the Upper Peninsula from last year. We take our grandkids up to a cottage 2 houses away from where Steve would spend every summer of his childhood at his family's house. And he gets to take them fishing in the same stream where his grandfather taught him to fish. And we get to walk downtown Houghton, where we took our first vacation together. And we were up in Copper Harbor, up at the tip of, don't you love being able to make the state with your hands, say the Lower Peninsula, Upper Peninsula. Copper Harbor is right up at the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula. And I saw this and wasn't sure what it was. I said, boy, it looks like it's related to Viper's bugloss. And it is related to the borage. It's in the borage family. But it's an invasive plant called houndstooth. In fact, most of those plants that are there, this is Euphorbia cyperaceus. Everybody's great aunt had it in their rock garden. Euphorbia spurge that travels around by runners underground. And in the same place, there's a rose that's one of the salt spray roses that's spreading around. A lot of invasives, but many of them aren't able to get into the woods, which is nice. This is an invasive, non-native called biennial lupin that happened to be the lupin the flower that Steve's great uncle Axel, namesake about the reason that our grandson is named Axel is because his great 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 uncle was such a cool guy, And he would spread the lupin seeds on his hill to grow them. And he would always select for the blues and the purples. This can be quite invasive, but is a great plant for a garden. Had some question about cuttings this week. Diane, yes, Diane. She said I'm trying to get more Agastaki, and I think I'm saying that wrong. I think I learned it wrong as Agastaki, and I think it's actually Agastaki, but we'll take it from there. So she took some cuttings and put them in and has been rooting them for several weeks. And she did the tug test that we described in the cuttings webinar, and they seemed to be forming roots. So she took them outside to plant them, and it turned out they didn't have any roots. They just were pretty well packed into the growing mix. I put out some cuttings just 2 weeks ago now of and these were sucker cuttings off of Ural falciparia. And I grew them on for about 3 weeks under lights inside till they were forming their own roots and put them out. It's a tough time to put out cuttings or things with just a little bit of root because you've got to keep them moist. And that's hard to do when it gets into the 90s and when it's dry for a couple of days. But if you can do it, you can keep them growing. These, since they had no roots, need to be growing on a little bit more, or go ahead and put them outside and let them go. But I would, if it was mine, I would take these two, and one of them I would cut down to just 2 leaves and take the flower buds off. See if I could convince it to spend its time just making roots. Whereas right now, all of the flowers forming up here, those flowers are developing hormones that are telling the rest of the plant, we don't need leaves, we don't need roots, just make this flower get done right now. So flowering parts are not the best parts to make cutting from. Sometimes growers will take a plant that is their mother plant for whatever reason, and they'll cut it back hard in order for it to shoot out new shoots, and they'll take the new shoots for cuttings. There are some Japanese maples that are the mother tree of various maples, like red emperor too, with red lacy leaves and a particular shape that if you looked at the mother plant, you would not even recognize the mother plant because it looks like a big ball because they've cut it, sheared it so often to get pieces to take cuttings from that it's really shaped more rounded out than it should be. So all the flower buds, and it's very likely that once it starts growing, it'll go back into flowering state. But if you can convince it for a little while to stop making flowers, you're more likely to get it to start making roots. I think it's fun to make cuttings, and July is a good time to do many of the spring blooming shrubs. It's a great time to stick cuttings in the ground. I like birds that are named for what they look like. Red tail hawk. Yes, red tail. Michelle says she has a ton of Ural falciparia if I need some more. If your Ural falciparia is the full-size one, I might take you up on that, depending on how mine do back here. I have seen that the nurseries are selling Ural falciparia, which is good. They weren't 30 years ago when we started using it. Or my first Ural falciparia was stolen from an easement. There was a large colony of it on the property alongside the main street on Adams Road, actually, and a split rail fence that it was growing along. And some of it had come out from underneath a split rail fence, no, Baldwin Road. And I said, oh yeah, I'm going to stop and take a piece from that had stuck out from the fence. But I want the full-sized one. I'm not interested in Sem, the supposedly dwarf one. I want the full-sized one because we had that before at our other house. And the butterflies liked it a lot. Results of deadheading. This week I did three times deadheaded at my son's house, where they generally don't because it's too tedious. They can get the kids to water, but they can't get them to deadhead for them. And I said, one of these years I'm going to make it to where their plots on the deck actually look nice. So I thought I would update you on how that's going. So June 27th, not quite a month ago, call it a little bit over 3 weeks, I deadheaded these that hadn't been deadheaded. And now they look like this, these two. They're Million Bells. And I'm a little, I love that they're getting greener. They were very chlorotic. They weren't using fertilizer, and they were letting it go to seed. So the flowers that were finished were forming seed pods. seed pod, seed pod, seed pod, seed pod. They're all over the place. 5, 6, 7 seed pods right down here. And the more seed that's forming, the less new leafy shoots will come out. So it's looking much better and fuller now and greener. I'm not sure why the one that, that pink flowered one with the yellow stripes. I'm not sure why the new growth is all coming out albino. I don't think it's a chlorosis problem, but I'm watching it to see what happens. But there's lots of flower buds ready to go. I think by the time my son is back from their vacation and they see it, there will be flowers at the end of each of these new branches. I hope so. Certainly by the end of the summer. This petunia it did not like the heat and being watered infrequently. So a lot of it had literally just burned and was growing lank. Now that I've deadheaded it for a couple of weeks, it's growing new shoots off of all of the main branches. I took a couple of main branches right back, and it's looking much, much greener now. Going to be a much fuller plant. This double petunia, it didn't like the heat either. I cut a lot off of it, and it's now got a lot of flower buds. This is flower bud, flower bud, flower bud, flower bud. But it doesn't seem to be a particularly vigorous grower. Sometimes these ones that they breed to be double flowers are bred just for the flowers. Am I going in the right direction? Let's see. Oh, I cleaned it up. That's what this picture is. And then this is now, and these are all the flower buds on it. Come on, flower buds, you need to be covered with flower by the time they get home. The verbenas like cooler weather anyway, but they had flowered and finished in the heat and needed to be cleaned up. So I took it from here. Now it's here. Can you see? Flower bud, flower bud, flower bud, flower bud, flower bud, flower bud. Lots of new branches and a lot of good dark green growth rather than that kind of washed out growth that was there. This is a mint that's next to it, and I've been keeping it pinched because it wants to take over the whole thing. Mint was not at all concerned about the 90s and the dry weather that we had. Not one bit. Said that's fine. This is a monkey flower, mimulus. It was pale as all get out, and it's now got lots of new shoots and flower buds all over it, just from being deadheaded. And I used this one as an example to show you how I was deciding what to cut. And I said, you got to look and say that the tip, because the flower buds often look similar to seed pods, but the flower bud is almost, on most plants, Liatris is an exception, the flower bud is going to be at the tip. Here's the tip of this branch. These that finished blooming, and you can tell they finished blooming because they still have flower parts hanging on them, but that isn't always the case. This one has lost it. They look similar, but they started from further back on the stem, and those needed to be cut off, like so. And I learned that when you learn something new all the time, I do anyway. There's where I cut that piece off. But the new growth is coming from back here. I can take more of the stem off on a mimulus and get the flower coming. See, here's another one that I cut back. And although I cut it out here, the new growth is coming from here. So I have learned cut back further. Don't cut back just the flower bud that you see, the seed pod that you see, cut further back. The alyssum has just really appreciated some fertilizer and being cut back. So it's looking good. Look at the yellow, almost gold leaves on that. On this is a mimulus too. I think this one's another mimulus. But it's growing back now with a nice dark green leaf. Not much bloom. There's one bloom open now. I'm praying for the others to get going. They're there. There's lots of flower buds all over at the tips, but they're not open yet. Whoop, sorry, going the wrong way. And now the alyssum is all pretty healthy. Took a little bit of fertilizer, and this is a mustard family plant that they're pretty famous for not needing much in the way of extra nutrient. But see the purple stems that on what I was taking off of it? That's a phosphorus deficiency, and there's no purple stems on it now. It's all green and healthy. This one's to me was kind of a poster child. This verbena has really just taken off, and this is a Uh-oh, not Plectranthus. Ha, it's like a geranium. I can't remember its name. Somebody can put it in there. The fertilizer that I've been using is the fertilizer that happened to be in my garage. I have some powder fertilizer, some Miracle, some Rapid Grow 20 that I had for some reason. I would often buy a container of fertilizer to illustrate to somebody that this fertilizer is enough for your square footage of garden for the whole summer. And I would say, there, use that up, not between now and the end of July, beginning of August. And I think I ended up with that bottle. So I just used what I had. So it was, I'm providing all nutrients because this potting mix that they're using is a soilless mix. So there's no soil, no minerals in it. And I don't like using the potting mixes that have fertilizer added for two reasons. The fertilizer that they put in is their choice of fertilizer, not necessarily what you want to have for your plants. And number two, it's very high priced. If you look at how much fertilizer they put into that bag and how much more they're charging you for it, you could definitely do a much better job buying your own fertilizer. And yes, it's blue. It's dyed blue so that when you put it in the water, as I do, I mix it up in a couple of old milk jugs and keep it over there so I can use it. I just use it in a dilute quantity rather than they'll tell you every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. I just use a little bit all the time. And the blue keeps the jug identified as not to be drunk. Okay, Michelle, if your false spirea came from the zoo, then it is the full-size one because that one came from my old house. This one's a real successful story. Look at the much better color on the, who knows what this particular vining plant is called. And the petunia, this particular petunia, every time I've worked on it, about 9 o'clock in the morning, a hummingbird has whizzed by my ear and hovered back and forth in front of me as if to say, get away from my plant, that's my plant. This, I can't think what fan flower's other name is. This is a fan flower. Scaviola. Um, I like it a lot, and it's got a lot of buds coming. It's got a lot of flower buds coming there, but they too are they're coming from further down in. I could have cut these back further, but I figured they were green leafy surface and they're providing food for the plant, so we'll leave them in there until we get those flowers opened up. It's a million bells and lotus plant. Much better color on them. Lantana that probably because of the fertilizer that I'm using, the color has deepened on the flowers and a lot more flowers are coming, but I'm obviously not using enough because I've still got that pale chlorotic look on some of the newer foliage that's come out. And if you want to know more about deadheading, there are quite a few articles on gardenataz.org where you can just go into the search field and put in deadhead and get articles about deadheading foxglove before they look ridiculous and deadheading gaillardia that really doesn't need it, but can look a little neater and bloom a little bit longer than the 2 months that it already blooms. And to tell the difference between a seed pod and a flower bud on things like violas. My granddaughter explaining how to deadhead the Thunbergia, black-eyed Susan vine. There is a webinar that includes deadheading called Primping Perennials. And if you are a webinar subscriber, then you have the URL, the address to the resource page. And from your resource page, you can go and download a note-taking guide from any of the past webinars. And you can find a webinar by title, date, or number. You can just download those. Anyone who wants to can download the webinar list and descriptions off of the webinars page, but you won't be able to watch all of the webinars. Only some of them are free. Lots of waterfalls in the Upper Peninsula. Okay. Should a Astilbe be deadheaded? I like to deadhead Astilbe. Some people like how it looks in the winter, but I think it only looks good in the winter if it's bloomed really fully, which it does if it's moist and in the shade. It'll just have a dense cluster of flowers. If it's grown kind of dry or in too much shade. The clusters are not overly spectacular, so they're not spectacular in the winter either. So some people deadhead, some don't. I don't deadhead anything I don't have to deadhead. I am becoming lazier and lazier, wanting more and more to grow the things that can take care of themselves. And you've got your hand up. What's up?
Hi, Janet.
Hello.
I had somebody walk through our memorial garden at our church, and he noted that I think it was the spireas had a manganese deficiency. What's the difference between that and an iron deficiency in a plant?
I would have to look in my textbook to see what the difference is. Manganese. Got
He thought,
scorching on the edges of the leaves.
no, he just thought that the spirea leaves weren't as dark green as
They
they
should be.
should be. Yes.
Yeah, I think unless I sent a sample of a twig to the soil testing lab and had them look to see what deficiency, I don't think I would know the difference for sure between a manganese deficiency and an iron deficiency. Just if it's chlorotic, I would look at my soil test for the area and see if it actually needed something. Most plants can grow just fine with deficiencies, but when they get to be bad, like you got the purple stems or the stunted growth or the tip growth dying back or the old growth dying back, then you can work on a particular deficiency. I think those deficiency identifications mean more to the professional growers who are growing on soilless mix and growing a crop of all one plant, because I would be really hesitant to try to fertilize just the spireas. It's kind of a, a little detail that you don't need when you're taking care of the whole garden. But I can look. I'm making a note right now, manganese deficiency, and
They are blooming wonderfully, and they didn't look necessarily deficient in my eye, not like you might see the veins in some other plants that had a iron deficiency.
yeah,
So he suggested using Epsom salts. So I'll follow up with that online, maybe in my extension
yeah.
group to
I
see.
don't, and there's potassium in Epsom salt, so do we need potassium in the soil? You start wondering about that balance. I do have a textbook that has the deficiencies, has a chart, and I'll put that in for next week and show the different kinds of things that can happen. Now, you have to understand that in the textbooks, they're going to show you the extreme examples.
Yes.
And it's kind of like when I was a kid, I used to love to open this. I don't know why. There was a medical dictionary, medical symptoms book that my parents had in one of the corner bookshelves. And I would go open it all the time to the rickets page. Just morbid fascination with how awful someone could look when their legs are bent out. Well, that's the kind of thing that you see in these books is the extreme examples. And
I have
so,
one more question, if I could
uh,
intrude. I have a hedge of 5 viburnum. They are blue muffins, and they were planted erroneously by the person who recommended them in a remodeling of my garden. And so they're in dappled shade. They got to be 9 feet after 3 years, maybe 4 years. So I cut them back down to 6 feet. And then this season, the new growth has come from those cuts and has extended itself at least 2 feet or so. But all of those stems, those branches are weak, pale green, and even the weight of rain on the leaves is causing them to droop and break at the place of the cut. Not a lot of them, but enough of them that it looks untidy. I've got to cut them off. So my first thought is that they probably need to be in full sun, and they're not.
yeah, arrowwood viburnum belongs in full sun. It'll grow in the shade, but it'll do just what you're seeing there. It'll pack more stems per square foot in, and each of those stems is vying with the other stems. They come up quickly and are weaker than they are. In order to keep something like that growing sturdily, you would need to keep thinning it out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um,
All
and
right.
here I thought you were going to ask about blue muffin and the berries. I mean, it being
Oh,
called blue muffin for the berries. unless you have another arrowwood viburnum of a different type around. It's like having apples that you don't get very many berries unless you've got a cross pollination with another kind of viburnum.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating. Every flower that's come out in the last 3 or 4 years has been attacked by every Japanese beetle in the county.
Yeah,
Therefore, we get no berries, and then they're not in full sun, so they don't get the color.
maybe you can keep them only as a trap crop. We used to
Yeah,
have a Harry Lauder's walking stick that I thought I've kind of gotten tired of this shrub, but I'm going to keep it because the Japanese beetles show up there first. So
yeah.
I could watch the one shrub and kill Japanese beetles there before they got elsewhere in the garden.
All right. Thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Well over 100, close to 200 waterfalls in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Some of them are little bitty guys, hard to find, but if you get a book, you can traipse around and find them. We've been doing some cross country with the grandkids looking at waterfalls. Talking to people about vegetables, this has not been a great year for some people in the veggie patch, and I thought I should share with you this exchange that happened between my friend Debbie and her daughter Deanna. Starting out with just saying that if you've got problems with your vegetable garden, one of the best things you can do is take a good picture and scan it into your computer, drag it into a search engine, and then tell that search engine to show you images, and then pick the images that say University of Maryland, South Dakota State Extension, rather than Thompson Morgan and gardening know-how. There may be very good people, just as we are at gardenatozee.org, but start with the .edus, with the extensions, with the universities, with the phytopathological journals. So this exchange went on. Did I actually buy yellow tomatoes, Mom? Mom says, well, yeah, or the plant, maybe you didn't accidentally buy them. Plants can get mislabeled. It happens all the time. Are they right? Looks like it. But give it a little time. Keep waiting for them to turn red. I mean, this is what happens to us, isn't it? They're not going to turn red. They're going to split open. Don't think that's going to happen. I don't think so either. This garden is a mess. Too hot. Damn bunnies. Late frost killed the cucumbers. Also think the frost hurt my zucchini and summer squash. They seem to not be growing much. But the crabgrass I'm growing is epic. Crabgrass is amazing. Overnight, it can double in size. Don't you just love it? And the green beetles are eating my grapes. At least they aren't eating the green beans, maybe because the bunnies beat them to it. I just think there's something about gardening that if you can't laugh at it, you're just missing something. Look at her. She said, my peppers are not doing too well. Look at my poor one single baby jalapeno pepper. Yeah, it is frustrating, but it's life on the farm. Any questions about your vegetable garden or anything else that's going out there? Let's see. I think I'm up at the end of the. And if your hand is back up again, go ahead and talk. Otherwise, I probably should take it down. There you go. Gretchen, you got something to add to
Hey,
the?
yes, I was thinking this year, I don't know if you remember, I had 3 rows of Sharon that were tree size, they would bloom just at the top, and I
Right.
thought I thought they were ugly. So I just cut them off this year at the base, and I'm just counting on them coming back. Will they come back or not? I mean,
Well,
they've got some green on, how oh,
it's
they
almost impossible.
sucker,
Yeah.
of course.
It's almost impossible to kill a rose of Sharon by cutting it, but when they're grown in the shade, they're pretty weak. I've got had a hedge of them in the shade at a client's place that I had to be careful. I was only cutting 1 or 2 stems all the way back to the ground every year because they were so slow coming back. Out in the sun, I'll get 3 to 5 feet in one year off of every cut, and often multiple stems, 3 to 5 feet. But in the shade, you might get 1 or 1.5 branches, one coming up 3 feet, one coming up 2 feet. So you just have to watch them and see what it is that they're willing to do for you, given the amount of sun that they have.
I'm not fond of them.
Neither am I particularly. The ones that I like to have in the yard are the standard single flowers because the hummingbirds like them and the bees like them. But those are the same ones that drop 1,000
Yes, as
a year.
seeds are just,
Yeah.
it's
And
awful.
I get a little tired of pulling Rosa Sharon seedlings out. So
The nice thing was that it revealed my neighbor has a beautiful hemlock hedge. And the nice thing was with taking these ugly trees down, I now get to see the backside of her beautiful hedge, and I'm really enjoying it. So
that hedge could
maybe,
also be a nice background for something on your side where you could just look at the green hedge
right.
and have some specimen thing out there that just by virtue of its form was really nice. Something like you're in a shaded area, so it'd probably be a witch hazel, something that has a broad
Uh,
spreading look to it.
It'd be pretty there.
Yeah.
If I don't have any, I've never had luck though getting a witch hazel to thrive.
We have our first two witch hazels in probably 10 years that have done well. And it took one of them 3 years to get going because we had such a mess of roots went in the from the grower. A lot of those witch hazels are kept way too long in a small pot because they're slow to grow and their roots are a mess when you get them. So you have to cut so many roots that they take forever to get going. But if you can find a small one in a pot, at Toledo Botanic Garden, I noticed that they had um, Dianas or Dianas and Athenas that are just beautiful fall color as well as beautiful.
Mhm.
And they were small in pots they started cuttings in their own greenhouse, and I would look for things like that.
So yeah, that'd probably be like get it from like Tennessee Nursery or something where they just sell,
They just sell starts.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but plan to take care of it for
Yeah. It
a
used to be
number of
great
years.
in the old days, maybe 35 years ago. You could order bunches of woody plants, bare
Yeah,
root. They were
yeah,
called liners because then they would come with a decent root and you could literally just make a row and set them out to grow. But now everything's in containers and more expensive too.
yes, yes. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not holding my breath about the Rose of Sharon. It's not, it was like, goodbye.
You know, that's what Steve and I say is you don't know the plant till you've killed it. Okay, I don't care about you anymore. I'm going to do this, and you find out just how far you can push it. We have only one set of waders that's child-sized, although Autumn is now big enough she can wear the adult ones. But Steve takes the kids one at a time out to the trout stream and shows them how to catch a rainbow trout and a specky. And he has a great time being his own grandfather. It is beetle season. So on the beans, one of the plants they love to be, Japanese beetle. Japanese beetle is one of the scarab beetles, and it is an Asian beetle that doesn't belong in the US, but there it is anyway. And we talked last time about Asian garden beetles. Japanese beetles have those little dots along their carapace there, and they are scarab jewel tone, green and brown, and tend to look a little different as the light hits them differently. There are Asiatic garden beetles. They're not Japanese beetles. They're in the scarab group of beetles. And by the way, there are more beetles. If you add up the species of beetles that are identified, not even worry about the 100,000 that are suspected out there that haven't been identified. If you add up all the beetle species, there are more beetle species than there are all other insects combined. So there's lots of different beetles, but these Asiatic garden beetles, several different species, have also invaded. This one, no, I've forgotten. You actually have to use their like Anomala orientalis. You have to use their botanical name because most of them are just called Asiatic garden beetles. If you take a good picture and scan it in, you'll come up with things like Bug of the Week is Mike Rops from University of Maryland, who is a delightful writer and a very knowledgeable guy writing about it. Or you'll find Joe Boggs from Ohio State writing about them. But they are all very destructive. This one is on my hate list for the last 10 years. This one scuttles around on the ground much more than flying. The Japanese beetles tend to fly away. This one will drop to the ground and go hide in the leaf litter, and they do it very quickly. But they're destructive as grubs in the ground, eating roots in the off season from the fall till June or so. and then they're destructive in eating plants when the adults come out. And they eat these guys, for instance, both of these two types, they'll eat 100 different species of plants, which is awful. So you want to watch out for these guys. Now, our friend Gail has decided that this year there's so many Japanese beetles, she's putting out a trap. It's not recommended that you put out a trap. These traps were originally designed as a early warning system for growers. You put out a trap, in the trap, in the bag is a pheromone. It's a sex pheromone that Japanese beetles release that attracts other beetles. It's once the beetle starts feeding, it releases this pheromone which can waft a quarter mile away. And the pheromone basically says, good food, good sex, come here, and attracts other beetles. If you put out a trap and you were a grower, like Nancy Lindley was at Great Lakes Roses, roses being a Japanese beetle favorite, you got to watch out and know when they're going to show up. So you put out a Japanese beetle trap and you put it on the upwind side of your acreage. And when you start seeing Japanese beetles in it, you take the trap down and you begin doing your control methods because you've now been told they're flying, they're out. So you don't have to guess when they're out, you know that they're out. Gail said, I'm going to use it to actually collect them. I know I'm calling in beetles from all over the place now because this stuff is wafting a quarter mile around and pulling in other beetles, but I'd rather get them to one place. So Steve was looking in the bag and he said, there's not just Japanese beetles in there. See who else is in there? So this pheromone must attract other beetles too, other Asian beetles. There's a Japanese beetle. You can see the dots on its carapace right there. And then there's the Anomala orientalis in there with a speckled beetle. And they're all in there. I guess once they get in, they're too awkward they aren't able to climb up and get out. He did see some flying out. He took a movie for us, but it wouldn't play very well. Now, Michelle says that her friend went to a garden center and said, what can I use on these Japanese beetles? And they recommended this, 3-in-1. I told Michelle I was used to 3-in-1s being insect, disease, and fertilizer, like for roses, 3-in-1. But this one is for insects and mites. And if you look at the active ingredients there, sulfur, that's your fungus control. Why we need to be putting sulfur on something that doesn't need to have sulfur put on it is always beside me. But it's insecticide, which is also a miticide, is pyrethrins. Right there, we can just read it in there. Pyrethrins are a compound that a member of the chrysanthemum family can create. Chrysanthemum, it's one particular species, and they make cockroach control and other things from it. It's a nerve toxin that seems to affect insects' nervous system. It can, in quantity, it can hurt people too. But it has to be, in order to affect a Japanese beetle, it's got to be on the plant, and they have to ingest enough of it for it to affect their nervous system. Then they can't fly and they can't get around and can't eat. But they have to eat to ingest it. Same thing with mites, aphids, anything else and most insects, our nervous systems are sensitive to it. So if you use something like this, it's not going to stop the damage, not completely. You're still going to have these things landing and eating, but it could control the numbers for the next year. I tell people it's much easier to pick them off by hand or just put up with them on the bad years, because sometimes that's just the way that it goes. Japanese beetles. And you can, just as with the plants, if you look up that active ingredient pyrethrin, this is from Science Direct, and you can read chapter after chapter of different aspects of that particular type of there we go, Chrysanthemum cinerarifolium. And that it's been used in a long time. You can read a chapter on how it affects people. You can read a chapter on how it works to affect insects. So you can look and see about these things before you go putting it out in your garden. It is going to affect all insects, though. It supposedly doesn't affect mammals, and I've been looking to see whether the birds will react to it, but I haven't found anything definitive there. So Margie, knowing we were talking about beetles, sent in, she said, these beetles showed up out of my basement. And don't beetles live in the ground eating roots? And what are they doing in my beetles move down as the frost enters the ground in the fall. Beetles move down below the frost line, and they just dig their way down, and they can end up quite a ways down. And if there's cracks in the foundation, all it takes is a little crack to get through. Which beetle it is, take a good picture of it, drag it into a search engine, look at bug guide, bugguide.net, or bug of the week. You'll find something that matches. But don't ask me, I'm not a beetle collector. One of the rugosa roses, it's a dwarf one, and it's just beautiful up in Copper Harbor. Ground cover mixed in with the grass and the vetches. Oh yeah, Michelle says she's seen the Asian garden beetles in her garden. She's seen at least 5 of them. Where there's 5, there's 25 or more. I first saw them 10, 12 years ago on the east side of Detroit in some gardens. I'm not saying that they got there first, but that's where I saw them. And within 5 or 6 years, I was seeing them all the way out to Brighton and Lansing. They've either moved through. I think they started on the southeast coast, is what I read. And they're trouble. Diane is saying the Japanese beetles drop real easily into a bucket or bowl of soapy water and just flick the beetle. The Japanese beetles, their tendency is to fall. If you go grabbing for them, we would grab for them and pinch the wings so they couldn't fly in and throw them into the fish in the lake. But if you go to grab for them, their tendency is to drop off backwards. So if you're holding the soapy water below them or water with a little bit of oil at the top, you're going to kill them. It's kind of fun. Yep, they fall right in. Yep. Got a couple of things from people this week about trees. Deb was wondering, she said, is the graft okay on this weeping cherry? Because the cherry tree itself doesn't seem to be doing very well. Um, many weeping cherry trees are double grafted. They have a straight trunk that's grafted at its base to a root system that's resistant to a couple of diseases that cherries can get in their roots. So I have a root system and a graft, a straight trunk, and then another graft where the weeping branch was grafted on. This graft looks fine to me. Grafts often bulge. Sometimes they bulge prodigiously, in which case they're usually telling you that it's not quite a compatible graft, but this graft looks okay. Anything that grows from below the graft line would grow up straight, and you would cut it off because it's not going to weep like the weeping top does. Anything that comes from above the graft, even if it goes up straight for a minute, is going to weep over. I said, no, the graft looks fine. She said, well, I can wiggle it in the ground. Okay. So if you can rock a tree back and forth, and this one's been in the ground 2 years, she said, if you can rock it back and forth, that means it's planted deep. Its pivot point is below ground level, and you're actually pushing soil from side to side. So you got to dig it up to make it set at the right level and grow better. And maybe you need to move it away from the house so that it can grow. She's trying to convince the person whose tree it is to move it. We'll see how that works, but you can't expect it to turn into something wonderful unless you want to espalier it. You can have an espaliered weeping cherry tree, take off the branches that are heading straight to the back, keep only the branches that are parallel to the wall, and keep clipping to there. You could have a little sculpture there. Sandra sent this. This is her neighbor's tree. She said it just peeled out of the ground. Yep. Not only peeled out of the ground, but you can see that it never was able to grow out into the sod. A lot of trees, I think this is a sycamore. I couldn't tell with the resolution of the picture what kind of tree it is for sure, but it never managed to grow in competition with the grass. A lot of trees are not able to compete with grass. Grass is a top dog plant. Well, that's why the prairies stayed the prairies for so long. But if you look, you can see that the roots only formed on the surface and they circled around once they hit the curb and the sidewalk. And there just wasn't enough of a base there to, balance the top of that tree. not able to spread its roots out. Grandkids grow up so quickly, it's fun to be with them. Barb asked about milkweed. She said, it looks like this milkweed has aster yellows. We were talking about aster yellows. And I thought, what's a good opening to talk about plant disease names? Because I kind of like the conventions for naming plant names, plant disease names. They're named scorch, wilt, yellows, mosaic, shot hole damage, various galls, various, I guess I have to think of wilt, death. So Ruth had sent this picture. She said, this is one of the seedlings that came up from my purple cone flowers. And it looks to me like, yes, this looks like yellows. You can see the discoloration on the leaves that are not dying right off, but the whole stem is going to die. And the deformity of the flowers, lack of the petals. You could get deformed flowers from mites, but this looks like yellows to me. And what should we do? Ruth said. I said, well, pull them, get rid of them. Can they go in the land in the yard waste? No. If it's yellows, aster yellows, for instance, there's ash yellows, aster yellows. There are other yellows too. I can't right now. I'm not thinking of others, but yellows is a virus, and viruses are not going to get killed at 140 degrees in a compost. They need to be burned, sent to an incinerator, or at last resort, send them to a landfill. They'll get buried. So Barb said, well, these milkweeds look bad to me. And I sent them the wild ones, and they said, it looks like yellows. The yellows, the disease organism, the pathogen that causes yellows in the aster family is a different organism than causes aster yellows that causes milkweed yellows. And there is a term phytopathology, phyto meaning plant, pathology meaning just what you see in the pathology departments. The phytopathological journals have reports on these kinds of things. There's a lot about aster yellows because there are agricultural plants in the aster family, lettuce, sunflowers, for instance. Milkweed is grown ornamentally, or it's a wild thing, but for the most part, not grown with other for food. It's become important enough now with monarchs because of the monarch situation that I found a paper about milkweed yellows naming the pathogen, and it is a different pathogen. So they're called the same thing, milkweed yellows, aster yellows, but they are distinct items. The milkweed is going to spread to others in the milkweed family. Swamp milkweed, orange butterfly weed, the annual milkweeds that we grow that are tropical milkweeds. Aster yellows is going to spread to anything in the aster family, aster, daisy, mum family. So I'm watching I brought a piece of big leaf aster from the woods up near Steve's family's place. And that one piece has grown into this year. And I'm watching it. I'm pretty sure that the paler leaves on this are just because the soil is sandy and pretty poor here. But I'm watching for deformities in the flowers, watching for problems with the leaves because I don't want to be bringing anything more into the garden than is already there. Shouldn't be blooming yet. I haven't seen big leaf aster blooming in July before, but it's a weird year. I got to remember the name of this horse before I get back up north. Anne has seen one of the apple trees that has a different type of apple on each branch. I've known a number of people who either bought a tree that had 4 or 5 different branches grafted to one trunk so that they could grow multiple varieties on one plant, or they had grafted them themselves for the fun of it. Yeah, those are kind of cool to do. There was a man, I think he's gone now, who lived in Bloomfield Hills, who started a nursery up near Traverse City. What's it called? They grew heirloom apples, and he was always grafting apple branches on. I remember one of them was one that Thomas Jefferson had brought from France called Pippin, Golden Pippin or something. What the heck was the name of that nursery? Someone might know. It might not still be there, but they were just heirloom apples up near Mackinac. Jackie wants to know if her milkweed that's so tall that it blocks the neighbor's driveway, so it's a hazard when you're backing out of your driveway or pulling out of your driveway. If she cuts them back, will it increase the root growth? No, it may increase the root growth. There's prodigious root growth going on in any field milkweed, but it will cause more top growth. And there are a number of experts saying that cutting back some milkweeds that you get renewed soft top growth is a good thing because the monarch butterflies tend to favor new tip growth to lay their eggs. They like the tenderer growth for the smaller caterpillars to come out on. So I don't think that it will cause more rooting. Sonia kept a piece of milkweed in her garden down by the road for, I think she told me it was the 5th year before it started suckering, because she was constantly pulling it to use it as fodder for the caterpillars she brought home and raised. And she was convinced that because she kept pulling the top, it was killing the roots. At my son's house, we started out cutting back and pulling and digging, and now we're down to 2 years later, just watching for sprouts and pulling them out to exhaust the rest of the roots. So if you were to cut repeatedly, I can't say that you'd have more runners. You'd just have more bushing growth on the top. Oh, Gail, thank you. Her big leaf aster is blooming early too. Same with Dave Mitchner's. He said, I don't know what's going on. Boxwood caterpillars are definitely out, and we're in the 2nd generation now for the year. Barb Spersky has reported that the spiders have definitely moved in and are trapping some of the moths in her boxwood. Do you need to burn the boxwood caterpillars that you've harvested, that you've taken off the plants by cutting the plants back? No, they can be killed in a hot compost, and if you put them in a place where they can't crawl back to your boxwood, you can kill them. I would start out putting them out in the middle of the driveway and hoping that the robins came and found them. I'm big on throwing grubs out where our robin that follows me, well, it might be multiple robins, they tend to follow us around, even sometimes yelling at me to move away quickly because he would like the things I'm throwing out. So I'd first try to feed them to somebody, but they'll be killed in a hot compost. Sorry about your boxwood being decimated. And the monarchs are out there now. Nancy and David sent these pictures, saying that just this,
Monarch.
that just this week
Monarchs are out now.
they've finally shown up. I saw
That's what we saw.
Viceroy and spangled fritillaries earlier. The Viceroys are a little bit smaller, and they float a little bit more. Monarchs are quite the fast flyers, and the spangled fritillaries don't have the distinct black lines on them. So I've seen a couple of big orange butterflies, but not monarchs until this week too. They also report, Nancy and David, that the ageratum, this is annual ageratum. Whoop, sorry, it's grabbing for my mouse and moved it. Annual ageratum. So blue heaven, blue Hawaii, lots of different blue ageratums. This one is called blue monarch, and this supposedly is better for or more attractive to the monarchs. And according to Nancy and David, of all the ageratums they've got, it's the one that they're going to. So like the white swamp milkweed, that's got a name. Somebody's going to remember the name of it. There's a white blooming swamp milkweed that supposedly is a magnet for monarchs too. So they seem to prefer some things. Because you bake the boxwood caterpillars in a black plastic garbage bag, yes. Although if you're going to bake insects, I have learned don't put sod in with them, because the sod provides a little insulated island. And it was the year that the European chinch bug moved into our area and was just wiping out lawns. I mean, literally. The birds loved it. There were birds of all kinds that you don't usually see looking for grubs, taking grubs that year. But I tried killing them, and they were in there for a month in the hot part of the summer, and there were still live grubs in there. So if you're going to try to kill them in a garbage bag in the sun, don't give them any soil to shelter in. sitting on the door handle. Yeah, monarchs. Isn't it wonderful when they actually visit us? Okay, I think we're past time, so we shall get going here. And do be careful if you're going to spray anything. Gloria's hibiscus, she asked me what was eating her hibiscus. And I took a look at it and went, oh, okay. I don't know anything that does this to hibiscus, but I do know what does this to just about any kind of plant. This is herbicide damage. And I didn't think it possible in Gloria's yard because she has everything done organically. She has an organic lawn care company, but they're still using a herbicide. And they were probably spot spraying it, and a little bit of it caught the growing tip of the hibiscus. She cut it off, and it's growing back well and not deformed from lower down. Sometimes, though, it has weakened the plant too much, and you find that it dies later. But if you see damage that's curled, distorted, sudden growth on a plant, and there's been any herbicide used in the area, you got to watch out for it. And it might also have something to do with these are roses that Terry and some other master gardeners are taking care of in a community garden. And she said, "What's going on with the roses? The flowers all did this." It could be that during that 90-degree spell that we had, if someone was spraying anything, insecticide, a lot of those are oil-based, and you spray those on a leaf, and it's like super sunscreen, super tanning lotion. And on sensitive petals, sensitive parts of the plant, like the thin petals, it'll burn them right away. So you want to be careful with anything that you're spraying. Oh, thank you. Monarch Magic, it's called. The white blooming swamp milkweed. Yeah, living next to a farm field, you get herbicide damage. It drifts in. It's just very difficult to deal with. Probably killed buds that were going to be the leaves on these branches too, on those roses, Terry. Okay, so that's it. We are racing toward the finish line and over the edge. If you've got questions and you want to hang out and talk for a bit, we'll see whether Steve makes it back in. There's still light outside, though. If there's still light, he's still after that fish. He's quite the guy. But that's it officially for this Free-for-All Friday. It's not too late if you want to subscribe to one webinar or all of the season 6 webinars and the 176 webinars already recorded. You can contact us through there. Our next webinar will be August 2nd with Pierre and Cheryl Venerup doing lawn alternatives. But we'll be Free-for-All Friday next Friday, coming to you from Oscar, Michigan, outside the Houghton Hancock and the Keweenaw Peninsula. Thank you for being here, and really appreciate that you are adding to the community knowledge of gardening. Have a wonderful weekend.